So this is a follow-up video on the video I done on Kenny Mack talking about the PPP loan fraud that the feds are uncovering, and this is something a lot of us already knew was going on. So in Milwaukee, and I had mentioned this in that video, there's a gang called the Wild 100s. Now don't confuse that with the Wild Hundreds here in Chicago, which refers to an area of the city. This is actually a street gang in Milwaukee, to the north of Chicago, man. So they apparently had scammed millions of dollars from the unemployment insurance, which is a joint state and federal program, according to an indictment filed in April against about 30 people. So members of the gang got fraudulent unemployment payments from California and other states, which they used to buy jewelry, machine guns, drugs, vacations, according to the indictment. So except for the jewelry and maybe the machine guns, okay, this is not stuff really that is going to give them really a return on their investment. Okay, the drugs, yeah, in the streets, but I mean, they're not buying businesses. They're not paying for people's education. They're not doing, they're not buying real estate. Like, they're not doing that type of stuff. They're buying illegal stuff when jewelry is not illegal. But I mean, this is money right out the window. So the gang also used the fraudulent benefits to solicit a murder, okay, to pay for a hit. Again, my point, but anyways, a guy named Ronald, he's 29, Ronnie, he's 23, are accused of conspiring to have someone killed. And according to their indictment, a man identified only as NB ended up dead. So this guy's name, NB, his name was Nasser. He was 20. He was fatally shot on April 5th of 2021 in Milwaukee. Now, I'm putting up a screenshot here of something they had solicited on social media. 50K, smoke his mama or sister. Okay, so they want his mom or his sister dead, and they're willing to pay $50,000 to do it, and they're advertising this right on social media. So the U.S. District Judge ordered Ronell detained until trial after prosecutors said that he was the leader of the Wild 100s gang. And I don't know the Wild 100s gang like that because they're not a Chicago gang, but I know a lot of times in Chicago when they say there's a leader, there's not really. In Milwaukee, I don't know, if that's the case or not, but he allegedly caused millions of dollars in losses by teaching others how to defraud the government of COVID-19 relief benefits. So according to prosecutors, Ronell posted an online message soliciting the killing of a rival gang member's mother or sister, but the rival's innocent friend was killed instead. So Ronnie was paid $10,000 for carrying out the shooting. So Ronald's lawyer told the judge that prosecutors don't have any direct evidence about the murder for hire accusation except for information that is really not reliable according to a summary of the detention hearing. So one defendant, a guy named Mike, he pled guilty to mail fraud, I think this was last Monday, and illegal possession of a Glock, and agreed to pay the government about $117,000 for unemployment benefits that he stole. And again, as I mentioned in that previous video, man, you can you can contract to operate a Subway franchise or like some of these like fast food restaurant franchises for like 50, 70 grand, and these guys were getting more than that. I've seen gangs like go into legitimate businesses and then leave the streets behind. I've seen guys do that. But the majority of the time when I see these guys come into these large amounts of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, whether it be like this fraud, the card cracking that they used to do, getting a record deal stuff, they typically don't do that. Now, some guys do. Okay, Fredo was doing that. Like, there's some guys who are businessmen who do that. And it seems like the obvious move to make, but the pattern of behavior just continues no matter how much money they get. So this is a direct counterpoint to everybody that says that resources are the main issue. I agree, like resources and jobs would help, but clearly there's a cultural retraining that needs to take place with a lot of these guys, man, because they keep doing the same stuff. So a guy named Brandon, who's a soldier serving with the Army at Fort Campbell, which straddles the border of Kentucky and Tennessee, is facing charges of supplying a coalition of Southside gangs with guns when it was used in a mass shooting. So anyways, Brandon's from Chicago. He was also charged last year with a separate case of orchestrating a ring that stole PPP money. Now, you guys may remember that case. I had reported on it at the time. The guy was helping, get the pipes, but he was also on this allegedly. So anyways, he's 24. He got a woman to give up her personal information so that he could arrange for her to get a fraudulent PPP loan. It says that he gave a small cut of the loan to the woman, who falsely claimed that she owned a new multifamily housing construction business and that a larger share went to a fellow soldier who helped recruit her. So he and his Army associate also stole personal information to get PPP loans And this is according to the indictment filed in Nashville, Tennessee. So in Maryland, the U.S. attorney told one of the TV stations over there in Baltimore last month that his office has found that about 60% of violent criminals have committed some type of COVID-19 fraud. He says that his office, and by the way, this guy's name is Eric Barron, he says that his office investigates every suspect of a violent crime to see whether they also were involved in scamming coronavirus benefits. He attributed a drop in killings in Baltimore to his office's aggressively prosecuting COVID-19 fraud. And who knows if that's actually true, but in Chicago, the feds have not included specific COVID-19 fraud charges in most cases that involve violence. So, in other words, they're just like, overlooking some of this stuff. Well, I'm not going to say overlooking, like they know that it's going on, but like, for example, the O Block guys, they have not had these charges added yet. Like I was mentioning in the video on Kenny Mack, even though the feds got wind that this stuff was going on, why they're not adding it, I don't know. But authorities here say that fraud allegations can be used during sentencing to seek an enhancement in prison time. So that may happen. We'll see when the O Block trial concludes if that happens. But that happened with a guy named Taiwan who was sentenced in 2022 to 5 years in prison. So he was originally charged with illegal possession of a handgun in the suburb of Evanston, Illinois, in 2019. That's just north of Chicago. Some people consider it part of the North Pole, but it's really not. The southern part of it, I guess you could consider part of that, because the gangs there are involved with the beef at the North Pole. But while free on bond, he bilked the government out of $20,833 from a fraudulent PPP loan. He claimed that he was, quote, a promoter of performing arts and sports on his loan application. So he was 26. He pled guilty to being a felon in possession of a gun and admitted to coronavirus benefit fraud for the purposes of computing his sentence, court records show. So each U.S. attorney's office has their own practices. According to the government, the Justice Department was saying that judges have different expectations across the country. It may be a different practice in another district that's charged as a separate offense as part of the same indictment. You can get to the same result in different ways in different districts. So this is like a matter of government legal logistics. But he says that people should be outraged that so many criminals engage in COVID-19 fraud. Okay, but one of the things that I'm saying, okay, we should be outraged that they were doing this, but the government was making it so easy to do. You know what I'm saying? They said they're in a life of crime. He said they are repeat offenders who are committing crimes on a regular basis. And now we're essentially giving them public money to fund what they're going to do. Anytime we have that connection, that should be particularly troubling to people. So again, the government bears part of the responsibility here for just making so many easy loopholes of this. Personally, I think you guys let me know what you think in the comments section, man. But yeah, so the Wild 100's gang in Milwaukee, 50K smoked his mom or his sister. And, they were getting so much money that they could have easily left the streets behind. I mean, you could open up restaurants, laundromats, buy apartment buildings with the kind of money that you guys were getting. So you guys let me know what you think in the comment section, man. Very interesting case of what happens when you actually do flood the streets with resources, and see what guys do with those resources. I was just talking online, and maybe I think a couple of years ago, to some other Greek guys, and one of them was saying that he wanted to start up some type of thing to get reparations, like for what happened to us during the occupation. And I disagreed with the guy, and part of my reasoning was, when you give people money, okay, that are obviously messing up already, if you don't give them financial literacy, that money, and we've seen this in case after case of people who have never had money who suddenly get a lot of it, within a few years they're broke again, okay, because if they don't have financial literacy, they don't know what to do with it. And they do stuff with it that just basically sends the money right out the window. They get fly, they buy cars, they spend it on women, they spend it on drugs, they buy stuff for their friends and stuff, and it's like you might as well you've given them nothing, and they end up worse at the end of it than they were before, because whatever they were doing to stay above water before that, they stopped doing that. They act like this money's never going to run out. And how quickly you can burn through like a couple $100,000, but like you can burn through that in a year if you're not financially literate, and if you don't know what to do with it, and if you're just like, this has happened to celebrities, rappers, guys who blow up at a really early age. They come into all this money and they have no idea what to do with the money, so they're just spending it, and they end up broke again. Like, and I mean fast. It doesn't last till they're like 60 years old. Within a few years of them getting it, they're broke again. People that win the lottery, like same thing. And they end up worse because they were, now they got all the money to buy drugs, so they're getting hooked on drugs. They're drinking, they get all these women pregnant because suddenly they got all this money, and then, women are going for them and stuff. And Now they got all these kids to support, then they're broke again and they can't support them. So it's going to do more harm than good if people don't have education. Number one, financial literacy. Take courses, at least basic courses in fundamentals of economics, and learn, how to be self-disciplined with this money. You can ask anybody that's actually made it up gradually, from the ground level, and eventually gotten enough money to where they can support their people, their neighborhood, their community, whatever. You know, this is not something. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And when somebody is just literally teleported to the finish line, okay, by something like this, you've given somebody the victory who's really not a winner. Like, he doesn't know anything about how to do this, and you've just done it for him. As soon as you let him go, he's gonna fall right back down. So, anyways, man, you guys let me know what you think down in the comment section, man. This is your boy, Chicago News. I'm out.